Hello! Today's installment is World War II History Notes, the major events. You will be filling in your close notes for 2, 3, and 4. It's going to cover your major events under section 2 in the purple. Let's begin. Major events in Europe and the Pacific. Neutral U.S. When World War II broke out in Europe in 1939, the U.S. followed a policy of neutrality, which meant that they wouldn't help either the Axis or Allied powers, which we'll talk about more later. Many people in the U.S. believed that the war was Europe's problem and not America's. They felt that they were far enough away to be safe from the war. Pearl Harbor. On December 7th, 1941, Japanese airplanes made a surprise attack on the U.S. naval base at Pearl Harbor in Hawaii. More than 2,400 people were killed, and many U.S. battleships and airplanes were destroyed. The USS Arizona after the Japanese surprise attack on Pearl Harbor. There's the boat. Lots of soldiers were on that boat and died. It was very sad. They got trapped. And while the bombs didn't kill them, they ended up drowning. And it was very, very sad. It's just in case you didn't get the notes. Or you can always pause. Here's another picture of some bombs dropping in Pearl Harbor. There's the USS Arizona. President Roosevelt called December 7th, 1941, a day that will live in infamy. The U.S. reacts. The next day, President Roosevelt asked Congress to declare war on Japan. They agreed, and the U.S. officially entered World War II on December 8th, 1941. On December 11th, Germany and Italy declared war on the United States. The U.S. was now deeply involved in World War II on the side of the Allies. So there was the Allies and the Axis, and we were on the side of the Allies. Apparently, Germany and Italy were planning to come to America. I don't know. Didn't seem very smart to me. Okay, there is Roosevelt signing the declaration of war against Japan. Hitler declares war on the U.S. in 1941. Here he is. See, there's this big bird, and you see the Nazi symbol, and all of these people were Hitler supporters. And if you look by how they're dressed, most of them are military, which is how he was able to keep people under his control. Two-front war. The U.S. fought a two-front war during World War II. In North America and Europe, the Americans fought against Italy and Germany. North Africa. Sorry, not North America. I was like, when did we fight in North America? We didn't. North Africa and Europe. In the Pacific and Asia, the U.S. fought against Japan. Axis success. The Axis powers were successful in the early days of World War II. So Axis is bad. Okay, Axis is a no-go. We like the Allies. Allies are friends. That's us. Woohoo! Allies are friends. Axis is oh no. Germany had conquered most of Western Europe and had invaded the Soviet Union. So Russia. Japan had conquered all of eastern China, the East Indies, the Philippines, and many other Pacific islands. But in 1942, the Allies began to strike back. So you see, this happened because they let it go. Nobody wanted to do anything about it. And it got to the point where now they had to get everything back instead of keeping them from doing it in the first place. So, D-Day. The turning point of the war came in 1944. On June 6th, 60,000 Allied forces under the command of U.S. General Dwight D. Eisenhower invaded Normandy in France. Hey, Eisenhower Parkway. Maybe you've heard of Eisenhower. It was the largest invasion by sea in history. They surprised the Germans, but the Allied troops still came under heavy fire and thousands were killed. So it was not just some easy thing. Here are the American troops approaching Normandy, France on D-Day. The Germans had taken over most of France and even England. There they are, waiting in the water to get to the beach. And what was bad is you can see here they're going onto the beach, but then there were hills, and that's where the Germans were firing from, so they had a better vantage point. D-Day. The Allies eventually took over all 5 beaches where they landed and headed inland to southern France. The Germans were now being attacked from the west, the south, and the east. By August, Paris had been liberated, and by September, the Germans were completely out of France. So we went in June for D-Day, as you can see up here, June 6th, and then July, we were in France. Oh, I think I went way too far. We were in France. Hold on, guys. So July, we were in France. August, we had gotten Paris back. And then September, we were able to push the Germans completely out of France, which was awesome. You can see more pictures. See the blimps. They used to use blimps a lot. And then you have these big ships and all these tanks and cars. It's pretty crazy. The Holocaust. You may have heard of this. It was just terrible. It's really hard to even think about or comprehend the things that were happening during this time. But I am going to do a read aloud with you guys during this unit. I have a couple of really cool books. One of them is called Making Bombs for Hitler, and it's either based on a true story or is a true story, and it just opens your eyes to just how much these people went through. The Holocaust was the systematic, state-sponsored killing of 11 million innocent people, 6 million of whom were Jewish. So Hitler and the government said, we don't like these people. We're going to kill them. We're going to get rid of them. It began in 1933 when Hitler and the Nazis came to power in Germany, and it lasted until 1945. During the Holocaust, Hitler targeted men, women, and children that he believed to be inferior to pure Germans. So the Jewish community was one of the biggest ones that he went after. They made them wear stars on their clothes to show that they were Jewish and they were not pure. And it was very hard. So you can see pictures. Look, they're behind this barbed wire and they're trying to huddle up. It's really cold. Beginning in 1941, every Jewish person was required to wear a yellow Star of David and forced to live in the crowded areas called ghettos. So that's what you were seeing up here. Those are their crowded ghettos. They're kind of behind a fence. It wasn't a prison, but it was also not very nice. So you can see the German soldiers were keeping them in there, and these children, they're just because they were Jewish, they were had to stay in these terrible places. As Germany conquered most of Europe during the war, the Nazis rounded up the Jewish populations in each country. Many Jews were eventually deported to concentration camps. So you can see their Stars of David. It tells you they are Jewish. It tells you that they are impure, that they are not good enough. And it was really, really sad. Here you can see them being lined up at the train tracks, and they were going to be put on the trains to be sent to the concentration camps. And this is them arriving in Auschwitz, which was a concentration camp. Forever let this place be a cry of despair and a warning to humanity, where the Nazis murdered about 1.5 million men, women, and children, mainly Jews, from various countries of Europe for 5 years. And so it is definitely a warning too, that it happened in the 40s, in the 1940s, and they were pretty civilized then. It's not like they were cave people. So it's just something to make sure that we're aware of how we treat people and how we think about people. Death camps was another name for concentration camps. In the camps, many would die from strenuous labor, they worked them to death, disease, or starvation. So there was lots of sickness. There were lice and fleas and rats and just all kinds of terrible things in these concentration camps. They barely fed them anything. They didn't treat them like humans. These death camps were killing facilities with gas chambers that could kill thousands of people at one time. So they would get a bunch of people in a big room, a bunch of the Jews, and they would put them in there. They would shut the door, and they would put gas into the chamber and killed the thousands of people who were in there at one time. They were also executed by a firing squad. By the end of World War II, over 6 million Jews had been killed by the Nazis, and 1 in 4 was a child. So if you're thinking, in fractions, it's 1/4. It would be, you get 4 of our students in a line, one of them would have been killed. And we have, how many students do we have? We have 16. So that means out of our 16, 4 of the students as children would have been part of this. It's terrible to think about. So here's the concentration camps. You can see how skinny some of them are, and the things that they're wearing. And those are just teenagers. This is a gas chamber. This is one of the rooms where they would put all those people in it, turn on poison gas, and wait till there was nobody else moving or living in there. It was rough. They even had ovens, and they would put Jews in ovens. It was just a terrible experience. I don't even know. Evidence. When Germany began losing World War II, they started killing thousands of Jews every day. Hitler wanted to hide the evidence of the mass killing and ordered as many camps as possible to be destroyed. So he was like, "Oh, I don't want the world to see what we were doing to the Jewish people, so let's start closing these camps. So kill everybody in them, and then let's close them and make them go away." So there you see, those are bodies. Those are dead bodies. They would dig huge pits and just throw the bodies in. It's unimaginable. Survivors. As the Allies moved across Europe in 1945, they came across some of the camps and were horrified by what they saw. The survivors were nearly skeletons from lack of food, and piles of corpses were everywhere. So look how skinny these people are. Here's their beds. They shaved all their heads because of lice. You can see all their ribs, their bones. They didn't have very much clothing, and when their clothing wore out, then they didn't have anything to repair it with. See, there's what, 1, 2, 3 people in each, and you see this right here, the little white thing that they're using as pillows. Those are their food and water bowls. And then they have the one thin blanket. So you can see why disease would spread, why they would freeze to death, all of these terrible things that happen. But you can see that as the Americans and as the Allies came, just how happy they were to finally be free and to be saved. And that was a major success. Closing in. In 1945, the Soviets advanced steadily from the east into Germany itself. American, British, and French forces closed in on Germany from the west. So, Soviets, Russia, coming down into Germany from the east. We were coming in from the west. And we met in Germany on April 25th, 1945, where we were ready to put it all down. VE Day. Germany surrendered to the Allies on May 7th, 1945. The next day, May 8th, 1945, is called VE Day, Victory in Europe Day. People were thrilled and celebrated all over Europe and the United States. VE Day, it's all over, all quiet till 9 p.m. Then the London crowds went mad in the West End. PM put off the big speech until today. 3 power announced today, but Britain knew last night. Daily Mail Historic Tribute. Victory Edition. This was from Tuesday. Right? So that's awesome. So it was from the Tuesday, May 8th. I thought that's what it said, but I was just squinting. Okay, and so here's pictures of, there's the day, and then by night everybody was out there like just so excited. Nazi surrender. VE proclamation due at 9 a.m. Truman, Churchill, Stalin announce historical. Can't see the rest of it. You can see the picture of the occupation in Germany, and just how excited people were about it. Look, you got people, Germany surrenders, and they're all just so happy. And look, you can see that looks to be a military person in Britain coming home and finding his wife. It's very pretty, very nice. All right, so our next installment is going to be over the atomic bombs, and that is going to be next week. So I want you to fill in your blanks and then take some time to process what we talked about, because that was a lot of information in a short little amount of time, and it was some heavy stuff. But it's good to know about this stuff so that we don't repeat the past. All right, guys. Thank you. If you have any questions, let me know, and I will see you later.